Good morning. Our discussion for this session is about the strategy formulation, but this time we are going to focus on corporate strategy. Okay, so first things first, corporate strategy is primarily about the choice of direction for a firm as a whole and the management of its business or product portfolio. So this is true whether the firm is a small company or a large multinational corporation or MNC. In a large multiple business company in particular, corporate strategy is concerned with managing various product lines and business units of or for maximum value. So in this instance, corporate headquarters must play the role of the organizational parent in that it must deal with various product and business units as their children. Now, even though each product line or the business unit has its own competitive or cooperative strategy that it uses to obtain its own competitive advantage in the marketplace, the corporation must coordinate these different business strategies so that the corporation as a whole succeeds as parent, children, so as a family. So, this corporate strategy addresses three key issues facing the corporation as a whole. We have the firm's overall orientation toward growth, stability, or retrenchment. So, that's the so called directional strategy. The industries or markets in which the firm competes through its products and business units, the portfolio analysis, and the manner in which management coordinates activities, transfers resources, and cultivates capabilities among product lines and business units. That's parenting strategy. So, corporate strategy, therefore, includes decisions regarding the flow of financial and other resources to and from a company's product lines and business units. Through a series of coordinating devices, a company transfers skills and capabilities developed in one unit to other units that need such resources. So, in this way, it attempts to obtain synergy among the numerous product lines and business units so that the corporate whole is greater than the sum of its individual business unit parts. Now, all corporations, from the smallest company offering one product line in only one industry to the largest conglomerate operating in many industries with many products, must at one time or another consider one or more of these issues as discussed. No? So, to deal with each of these key issues, the directional strategy, portfolio analysis, and parenting strategies are most likely part of the corporate strategy that organizations must address. So, just as every product or business unit must follow a business strategy to improve its competitive position, every corporation must decide its orientation toward growth by asking the following three questions. Number one, should we expand, cut back, or continue our operations unchanged? Should we concentrate our activities within our current industry, or should we diversify into other industries? And lastly, if we want to grow and expand nationally and or internationally or globally, should we do so through internal development or through external acquisitions, mergers, or strategic alliances? A corporation's directional strategy is composed of three general orientations. Sometimes, since these are called general, these are also termed as the grand strategies of the business. So it could either be the growth strategy, the stability strategy, or the retrenchment strategy. Growth strategies expand the company's activities, so it can either be concentration or diversification. Stability strategies make no change to the company's current activities, and retrenchment strategies reduce the company's level of activities. So, having chosen the grand strategies, a company's managers can select from several more specific corporate strategies, such as for growth we have concentration. Under concentration, we have vertical growth or horizontal growth. In diversification, we have concentric and conglomerate. Okay? Now, by far, The most widely pursued corporate directional strategies are those designed to achieve growth in sales, assets, profits, or some combination of these. Companies that do business in expanding industries must grow to survive. Continuing growth means increasing sales and a chance to take advantage of the experience curve to reduce the per unit cost of products sold, thereby increasing profits. So this cost reduction becomes extremely important if a corporation's industry is growing quickly or consolidating, and if competitors are engaging in price wars in attempts to increase their shares of the market. So firms that have not reached the critical mass, that is, they have not yet gained the necessary economy of production, face large losses unless they can find and fill a small but profitable niche where higher prices can be offset by special products or service features. A corporation, on the other hand, can also grow internally by expanding its operations both globally and domestically, or it can grow externally through mergers, acquisitions, and strategic alliances. In practice, the line between mergers and acquisitions has been blurred to the point where it is difficult now to differentiate, no, whether it's merger or acquisition. In general, we regard a merger as a transaction involving two or more corporations in which both companies exchange stock in order to create one new corporation. Mergers that occur between firms of somewhat similar size are referred to as merger of equals. Most mergers are friendly. That is, both parties believe it is in their best interest to combine their companies. So the resulting firm is likely to have a name derived from the composite firms. Okay, so for example, if one company is A, named as A Corporation, another company is B, so the new company name would get the name from both companies. So it could be AB Company or BA Company. Okay, an acquisition, on the other hand, is a purchase of another company. In some cases, the company continues to operate as an independent entity, and in others, it is completely absorbed as an operating subsidiary or division of the acquiring corporation. So, from management's perspective, growth is very attractive for two key reasons. Number one, growth based on increasing market demand may mask flaws in a company, flaws that would be immediately evident in a stable or declining market. A growing flow of revenue into a highly leveraged corporation can create a large amount of organizational slack. That means unused resources that can be used to quickly resolve problems and conflicts between departments and divisions. Also, growth provides a big cushion for turnaround in case a strategic error is made, so to bounce back. No, larger firms also have more bargaining power than do small firms and are more likely to obtain support from key stakeholders in case of difficulty. Another one is that a growing firm offers more opportunities for advancement, promotion, and interesting jobs. Growth itself is exciting and ego enhancing for everyone. The marketplace and potential investors tend to view a growing corporation as a winner or on the move. Executive compensation tends to get better and bigger in a corporation as it increases in size. Now, large firms also more difficult to acquire than smaller ones. Thus, an executive's job is large or in a large firm is more secure. So the two basic growth strategies are concentration on the current or innovative product line or lines in one industry and diversification into another or other product lines or other industries. Now, if a company's current product lines have real growth potential, the concentration of resources on those product lines makes sense as a strategy for growth. The two basic concentration strategies are vertical growth and horizontal growth. Growing firms in a growing industry tend to choose these strategies before they try diversification. Now, vertical growth as a concentration strategy can be achieved by taking over a function previously provided by a supplier or distributor. The company, in effect, grows by making its own supplies and or distributing its own products. So this may be done in order to reduce costs, gain control over a scarce resource, guarantee quality of a key input, or obtain access to potential customers. This growth can be achieved either internally by expanding current operations or externally through acquisitions. Now, there are two types or three types of vertical growth. No? It can either be a vertical integration, a backward integration, or a forward integration per se. Okay, so the vertical growth for the general vertical integration is where the degree of which a firm operates vertically in multiple locations on an industry's value chain from extracting raw materials to manufacturing to retailing. If you can still remember, I have already discussed this one in our previous session, wherein your integration can either be backward or forward integration. So you are at the center, whether you are going to expand your operation by providing the company with the raw materials. Okay, so you are taking over the function of your buyer, your suppliers. So that's backward integration. So you provide the company with the supplies, or instead of allowing sellers to sell your products in your behalf, you are going to make another company where you have to sell your products, no, instead of your usual sellers. So with that, you are doing forward integration. Okay, you are taking over the functions of your distributor sellers. So however, no, vertical growth is a logical strategy for a corporation or business unit with a strong competitive position in a highly attractive industry, especially when technology is predictable and markets are growing. To keep and even improve its competitive position, a company may use backward integration to minimize resource acquisition costs and inefficient operations, as well as forward integration to gain more control over product distribution. So, in effect, the firm builds on distinctive competence by expanding along the industry's value chain to gain greater competitive advantage. Okay? Um, of course, a company's degree of vertical integration can range from total ownership of the value chain needed to make and sell a product to no ownership at all. So, under full integration, a firm internally makes 100% of its key supplies and completely controls its distributors. So, examples of these are large oil companies that are fully integrated. With taper integration or the concurrent outsourcing, a firm internally produces less than half of its own requirements and buys the rest from outside suppliers. So sometimes this is called the backward taper integration. Okay, so this happens for mga agricultural produce, no, hogs that are used for uh, making or producing meat products, no, for pork. So, on the other hand, for the forward taper integration, a firm sells part of its goods through company owned stores and the rest through the general wholesalers. So, instead, you have the backward, you also have the forward integration. So, when you say backward and taper, so that means that you do not fully produce your supplies. Instead, you buy from the other suppliers. And for forward tapered, you do not fully distribute your supplies, but instead you also get the employ of other distributors. Now, with quasi integration, a company does not make any of its key supplies but purchases most of its requirements from outside suppliers that are under its partial control. So, this is the backward quasi integration. The company may not want to purchase outright a supplier or distributor, but it may want to guarantee access to needed supplies, new products, technologies, or the distribution channels. With this, it is important that companies have to draft long-term contracts. So these long-term contracts are agreement between the firms or the two firms to provide agreed upon goods and services to each other for a specified period of time. So although this cannot really be considered to be a vertical integration unless it is an exclusive contract that specifies that the supplier or distributor cannot have a similar relationship with a competitive firm. Okay? So in that case, the supplier or distributor is really a captive company that, although officially independent, does most of its business with the contracted firm and is formally tied to the other company through a long-term contract. Now, another type of concentration is the horizontal growth. So a firm can achieve horizontal growth by expanding its operations into other geographic locations and or by increasing the range of products and services offered to current markets. Horizontal growth results in horizontal integration, to which a firm operates in multiple geographic locations at the same point on an industry's value chain. Okay? Now, for the diversification strategies, meanwhile, we have concentric and conglomerate. No? According to some strategists, companies begin thinking about diversification when their growth has plateaued and opportunities for growth in the original business have been depleted. So, this often occurs when an industry consolidates, becomes mature, and most of the surviving firms have reached the limits of growth using the vertical and the horizontal growth strategies. Now, unless competitors are able to expand internationally and into less mature markets, they may have no choice but to diversify into different industries if they want to continue growing. So, the two basic diversification strategies are concentric and conglomerate, and both require sophisticated management techniques in order to keep the elements of the company moving in relatively the same direction. The concentric diversification, also known as the related diversification, growth here is or growth into a related industry may be a very appropriate corporate strategy when a firm has a strong competitive position but industry attractiveness is low. So some researchers indicate that the possibility of succeeding by moving into a related business is a function of a company's position in its core business. For companies in leadership positions, the chances for success are nearly three times higher than those for followers. So, by focusing on the characteristics that have given the company its distinctive competence, the company uses those very strengths as its means of diversification. The firm attempts to secure strategic fit in a new industry where the firm's product knowledge, its manufacturing capabilities, and or the marketing skill it used so effectively in the original industry can be put to good use. So the corporation's products or processes are related in some way. So there is a common thread or connection between these processes and products. Meanwhile, conglomerate or unrelated diversification happens when management realizes that the current industry is unattractive and that the firm lacks outstanding abilities or skills that it could easily transfer to related products or services in other industries. The most likely strategy is conglomerate diversification, diversifying into an industry unrelated to its current one. Rather than maintaining a common thread throughout their organization, strategic managers who adopt this strategy are primarily concerned with financial considerations of cash flow or risk reduction. So, this is also a good strategy for a firm when its core capability is its own excellent systems. For example, Berkshire Hathaway is one of the best examples of a company that has used conglomerate diversification to grow successfully. Okay, so it was founded by Warren Buffett. The company has more than 60 companies in its portfolio, including Benjamin Moore, BNSF Railway, Fruit of the Loom, GICO, and Seas Candies. So the emphasis on conglomerate diversification is on sound investment and value-oriented management rather than on the product market synergy that is common to concentric diversification. Also, a cash-rich company with few opportunities for growth in its industry might, for example, move into another industry where opportunities are great but cash is hard to find. Another instance of conglomerate diversification might be when a company with a seasonal and therefore uneven cash flow purchases a firm in an unrelated industry with conglomerate seasonal sales that will level out the cash flow. Okay, so these are typical instances where conglomerate diversification are good as a strategy. Now, you might ask, is vertical growth better than horizontal growth? Is concentration better than diversification? Is concentric diversification better than conglomerate diversification? Research reveals that companies following a related diversification strategy appear to be higher performers and survive longer than do companies with narrower scope following a pure concentration strategy. Although the research is not in complete agreement, growth into areas related to a company's current product lines is generally more successful than is growth into completely unrelated areas. Now, while there has only been limited research in that area, one study of various growth projects examined how many were considered successful, that is, still in existence after 22 years. The results were vertical growth, 80%, horizontal growth 50%, concentric diversification 35%, and conglomerate diversification 28%. This supports the conclusion from a later study of 40 successful European companies that companies should first exploit their existing assets and capabilities before exploring for new ones, but that they should also diversify their portfolio of products. Now, in terms of diversification strategies, research suggests that the relationship between relatedness and performance follows an inverted U-shaped curve. No, if a new business is very similar to that of the acquiring firm, it adds little new to the corporation and only marginally improves performance. If the new business is completely different from the acquiring company's business, they may be very little. There may be very little potential for any synergy. If, however, the new businesses or provide new resources and capabilities in a different but similar business, the likelihood of a significant performance improvement is high. Okay? So, another question, is internal growth better than external growth? Corporations can follow the growth strategies of either concentration or diversification through the internal development of new products and services or through external acquisitions, mergers, and strategic alliances. Okay, so that's the end of the first part.